All right, so today a lot of you have been asking me about fasting and how to get started, but let me tell you something. A prolonged fast is like running a marathon. You do not just wake up one day with no training, throw on some tennis shoes, and run 24 miles, okay? You do some training beforehand to get ready. So there are many ways that you can get trained. You can train your body to get acclimated to fasting and that kind of thing. One simple way is through what people call time restricted feeding or intermittent fasting. Now, I prefer the term time restricted feeding because we're talking about eating in an 8 hour window. You eat all your calories in an 8 hour window. Intermittent fasting is kind of a confusing term because if I fast 2 days out of the month, that is still technically intermittent fasting, but 2 days in a row of fasting is a prolonged fast. That means you're going to go to sleep, wake up, not eat, go to sleep again, and still having not eaten. That is a prolonged fast, okay? But when we're talking about intermittent fasting or time restricted feeding, we're talking about just eating in a shorter window. So there are a lot of negative side effects, according to clinical studies, this is not my opinion, of eating calories longer than 14 to 16 hours. Does not matter if you're in a caloric deficit, okay? It does not matter. If you're eating calories from 7 in the morning to 9 p.m. at night, that's bad news. You have increased risk of all-cause mortality, increased risk of insulin resistance, diabetes, weight gain, obesity, all these different things, high blood pressure, hypercholesterolemia, all these different things related to metabolic syndrome. So everybody, yes, even pregnant women and nursing women should eat in a 12-hour window. Okay? Should eat in a 12-hour window. You should not eat 2 to 3 hours before bed, and you should sleep for about 7 to 9 hours. Boom, you're right about at 12 hours. You're right about there. That's normal. That's a normal amount of fasting to do it in the day. Breakfast is literally break fast. Okay, that's what it means. Okay, you break your fast because you should not be waking up in the middle of the night while you're sleeping and eating. You've been fasting overnight. And you don't want to eat right before bed because it's going to disrupt your sleep and cause all kinds of problems. You are most insulin resistant after the sun has gone down, right before bed. It's a terrible time to eat food, especially carbohydrates. Okay, so doing some time restricted feeding, just being conscious of eating in that 12-hour window. If you want to deepen that a little bit, you can slowly move it up 1 hour at a time until you're at an 8 hour window. And that's a great way to prepare for a fast because you're doing 16 hours of fasting every day. Okay, now there are sometimes people say, Zach, but I thought women shouldn't do intermittent fasting. That's not true. Okay, if you read Dr. Mindy Pell's book, Fast Like a Girl, she talks about how the week before menstruation, that is a time when you do not want to fast because that is when your progesterone should be most high and you are going to be the most insulin resistant, but that's because your body needs the glucose to make progesterone. Okay, another time is in the 4 to 5 days of ovulation, where your estrogen and testosterone and progesterone is all very high. You don't want to do a fast longer than 15 hours during that time. Okay. So that's about all I'll say on this. If you have questions about that, ask me in the comments. I can get into more detail. Also, even if you're perimenopausal and postmenopausal, this still affects you because you still have progesterone. You just either have to do a hormone test or you have to test your blood glucose levels fairly frequently, about once a day at the same time, because those times where your blood glucose is the highest and you're the most insulin resistant, that's when your progesterone is high. Okay. So what are some other ways you can do it? Some other ways you can train yourself in advance. Maybe you do the intermittent fasting, at least do 12 hours, but maybe you don't want to do the 8 hours. Maybe it doesn't fit into your lifestyle. The Glucose Goddess Method by Jessie Inchauspé is a great way to eat your carbs very strategically. So her rules are: 1, you can have acid before the fast, or before you eat carbs, before you eat carbs. So you have some lemon juice in your water before you eat breadsticks. This is a great way to do it. You can do apple cider vinegar as well if you like that better. It's great to do lemon juice because at a restaurant you can be like, hey, can I get some lemons with my water? Squeeze 2 or 3 lemons in there. You can blunt the glucose surge that happens in your bloodstream by 30 to 50%. which is huge. Another thing you can do is eat fiber before you eat the carbs. So eat the salad before you eat the breadsticks. Bonus points if it's got oil and vinegar on there, because that's going to make it even better. That fiber is going to coat your intestinal tract, and it's going to slow how fast that glucose surges into your blood, and that's going to prevent you from having a glucose crash, which is going to cause hunger and cravings later on. Another thing that she recommends, rule 3, is not to eat naked carbohydrates. Okay, so what do I mean by naked carbohydrates? If you're going to eat pasta, you should put some protein on it, like some chicken or fish or what have you. You could put a cheese sauce, or you could put some olive oil on it. You could put beans if you like that kind of protein, because there's also some fiber in those. Another thing is, instead of having, oatmeal with honey and blueberries, add some nut butter or some chia seeds, or add a protein powder to it. Something that with fat and protein to slow it down. If you're going to have waffles and pancakes, throw some eggs in there, or get Kodiak pancakes with the whey protein, if you can do dairy, that is. You can put butter on there in addition to the eggs so that you have fat and protein. You're not going to want to eat as much, and it's going to slow down that glucose spike. Okay, the fourth one is, let's say you want to have dessert. Chocolate cake, brownie, and ice cream, that just has sugar in it. That's just the way it is. So if you've eaten a full meal with fats and proteins in it, and then you have the dessert afterwards, that is also going to slow the glucose spike. Okay, now some other hacks that you can do as well. You can do a post-meal walk. That's a great way to do it if you are traveling or something, which I still do walks when I'm traveling. I have GPS on my phone, so it's no big deal. But you can also do berberine as a supplement. I like liposomal berberine, but any berberine will do. It's an herbal extract that helps clear the glucose out of your system. Now, you don't want to do this before a meal. You want to do it after a meal, because you can cause hypoglycemia or low blood sugar if you have not eaten and you take berberine, because it clears out the glucose really fast. But if oh man, I just went to Olive Garden, I just had like pumpkin cheesecake, and I just had pasta, never-ending pasta bowl, you can take some berberine to clear out that glucose. Now, I'm not saying that you should use berberine as a way to cheat, but what I'm saying is, maybe you go to somebody's wedding or something, or it's New Year's, and I did some not so great stuff tonight. You can use that as a way to minimize the damage, okay? Minimize the damage from elevated blood glucose, to get your glucose down faster so that you're not in this hyperglycemic state for a long period of time. Those are just a few things that you can do to start training for a fast. You want to get more insulin sensitive so that it's easier for you to transition into fat burning metabolism. Now, if you want to do a ketogenic diet, if you're experienced with that, you know how to do the nutrient trackers, you got the recipes and that kind of thing, do a ketogenic diet. It's even better than everything I just mentioned. But most people, it's too restrictive. They're not going to stick with it. They don't want to cut out beer. They don't want to cut out bread. They don't want to cut out desserts. So if that's you, you need to eat your carbohydrates strategically. And that's where I'll end this, okay? So you want to get as insulin sensitive as possible. You want to get used to fasting. You can also just skip meals every now and again just to get used to that feeling. But this is some of the groundwork you want to do so that it's easy for you to fast, because otherwise you're going to hate it. It's going to be stressful, and you're never going to want to do it again. And I don't want that for you. I want you to train up. If you start running little by little, it gets easier and easier, and then pretty soon it's no problem to run a marathon. But if you try to run 10 miles your first try, you're going to hate it. Your knees are going to be killing you. You're going to hate it. You're never going to want to do it again. So those are some things to try. Start out with that. You will start losing weight just from these things. This is a healthy way to lose weight, and you don't even have to change your diet. You just move some things around. You shift the calories when you eat them, and you shift how you eat those calories. You will start losing weight right off the bat. Okay? Coming at you with another video later today.